Here's the ultimate kombucha guide just for you. Hi everybody, welcome back to Zevaulia with me Zeva, and in this video I would like to share with you how to make your very own kombucha at home. It's easy, it's healthy, and it is worth the try. Kombucha is a delicious and healthy drink to make. This will be a 1-week process to turn the sweet tea that we will be preparing into kombucha. This video will be about the first fermentation process. So there are 2 fermentation processes in making your own kombucha. The difference is that in the first fermentation process, it won't be flavored and it will be uncarbonated. So if you want to make a flavored and carbonated kombucha, that will be in the second phase, and I will make a video for you in the future for that. In this session, I will be making a 1-gallon batch of kombucha or 3.7 liters, and it will be enough for the whole family. Kombucha is not only a delicious drink, but it is also good for your health. If you want to know its origins and its benefits, you should check out my very first video on my YouTube channel. I will also post a link down below in the description box, so don't forget to check that out so you'll understand how it originated and how beneficial it is for your body. To make kombucha, you will need a SCOBY, and a SCOBY is not a mushroom, it is kind of like a fungus, it's a fungi. It stands for a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast, but more on that later. So if you want to know how to make the first fermentation phase, keep on watching. So these are the tools and the ingredients that you will need to make your very own kombucha. An important factor that you need to remember is that before you use any tools, you need to ensure that it is sanitized, that it is clean and hygienic. So what you should do is that you should wash it with an iodine solution or a dishwash soap and then hot water and air dry it under the sun. Why is it important to air dry it under the sun? In my opinion, is that so it will naturally dry on its own. If you use a tissue or a cloth, it may leave any remaining bits and bumps on the vessel, for example, or on the tools, and you don't want that. Because to make a kombucha, you need to make sure that everything is clean, everything is dry, or else it may risk killing the SCOBY. And bye-bye kombucha, that is. The main item you will need is a glass vessel, and this glass vessel will be the home of your kombucha and SCOBY. Why is it important to use a glass vessel? Is because, as we know, kombucha is acidic, so you cannot use a container that is corrosive or that will corrode. It will not work for your SCOBY and kombucha. So please use a glass vessel and make sure that it is clean, it is hygienic and dry before you use it. And this glass vessel is perfect for 1 gallon of kombucha. So before you make your own kombucha, you also need to measure how much kombucha you will make with the size of your vessel. Next, you will also need a French press or any strainer to strain your tea. Why I like using a French press is that it makes things easier, it's clean, and it's just very efficient. But if you don't have a French press, it's okay. You can always use any strainers because the main goal is to strain your tea. And other than the French press, you will also need some measuring cups and measuring spoons. This will help you measure the ingredients that you will use to make your very own kombucha. Some people like to use their hands and put the SCOBY into the vessel. It's okay as long as you know that your hands are super clean. We know that on our hands there are bacteria or whatnot, but some people believe that it's still fine to do so as long as you wash your hands first. But if you don't want to use your hands, it's fine. You can also be more hygienic and use these tongs or anything that can clip your SCOBY and transport it into the vessel. Other than that, you will also need a kettle. This kettle will be for boiling water, more on that later. And you will also need a piece of cloth to cover the vessel after the process is done. What is super important about the cloth that you use is that it has to be breathable and it has to have a small weave, so no insects, no mites, no dust will enter the vessel and ruin your kombucha. So what I like to use best is an old clean t-shirt, but you also can use a muslin cloth, a cheese weave cloth, a coffee strainer, anything that has a tight weave and it is breathable. And to secure the cloth on top of the vessel, you will also need a few rubber bands to tighten around it. For the ingredients, you will need a SCOBY and also a starter tea, and you will also need 3/4 of a cup of sugar and 3 tablespoons of black tea. You can also use other teas, but in my opinion, black tea is the best. Another alternative that you can try is green tea. However, the taste will be different. It will be much more lighter than using black tea. One more ingredient that you need to prepare is this. You will need 8 cups of water. I am using filtered water. It is best, so don't use distilled water because distilled water don't have much minerals left. And you need to make sure that this water is cool, it is cold, so don't use lukewarm, not warm either, or even hot, because it won't be good for the SCOBY and it could kill it. So you have to use cold water or cool water. And to ensure that this is cold, I usually put this in the fridge first. I would like to address a few frequently asked questions about SCOBY and starter tea that I found on the internet. So a lot of people always ask, where do you get your own SCOBY? So I'm from Indonesia and I get my SCOBY online. There are many online sellers. I'm not sure about each of your own countries, but what you could do is you could search online and buy online, and who knows, you will find your sellers there. In Indonesia, we have many e-commerce markets. There's Tokopedia, there's Shopee, and there are many SCOBY sellers there. What you need to be careful is that you have to make sure that these sellers are genuine and they sell you good quality SCOBY. And for the starter tea, it usually comes with the SCOBY. So usually the seller will give you a starter tea and a SCOBY when you purchase it. But for example, when you purchase a SCOBY, the seller doesn't give you enough starter tea. For my recipe, I would usually use 2 cups of starter tea. And when you don't have enough, what you should do is you should go to your supermarket or shop online for kombucha. So why is it important to have a starter tea? Actually, it is more important to have a good quality starter tea than a good quality SCOBY, because this starter tea will help the SCOBY grow and do its job. A starter tea is basically kombucha from the first fermentation phase that is unflavored. And what about the SCOBY size? Is it bigger the better, or small is okay? A small SCOBY is also enough, like this one. This is the reason why I want to make a small SCOBY example, so you will know that even a small SCOBY is enough. But however, if you want to use a bigger medium-sized SCOBY, it is also good. And one thing you need to remember is that SCOBY will grow in size through time. It is a living being, so this little SCOBY here that I named Scooby-Doo will actually grow bigger as the time goes by. Yes, I have named the SCOBY. It is like my very own pet, and here, may I introduce to you Scooby-Doo. Now we'll brew the tea, and currently I am boiling 4 cups of water in that kettle, and we'll get back to that later. So what we have here is the French press, or you can also use your usual tea filter, and 3 tablespoons of black tea, and this is 3/4 of a cup of sugar. So far I only have 2/4 of a cup, so I'm going to add another 1/4. I am using organic sugar. Why is sugar so important in making kombucha is because the SCOBY will turn the sugar into carbon dioxide. So this is an integral part of making kombucha. Now I'm going to be putting in the black tea and the sugar in the French press, or you can also filter it. So I'm going to be putting the black tea in, and also the sugar. And then we're going to be putting in the boiling water. So here's 4 cups of boiling water. I've already measured it before. And we're going to push this down. So just carefully. Now we are going to let the black tea and the sugar steep for 15 minutes. The black tea is now ready to be poured into the vessel, but before we do that, I have a crucial information that I need to share with all of you. So we need to ensure that the temperature of the water inside the vessel is good enough for the SCOBY, because if it's too high, it will kill the bacteria and the yeast. The SCOBY will basically die and we cannot use it, and we don't want that. And if it's too cold, it will actually create the formation of mold inside of the vessel. So we need to balance out the temperature of the water before we put in the SCOBY into the vessel. Now this black tea, not only is it still very concentrated, it is also still quite hot. We need to tone down the temperature of the tea and also dilute the tea. Now the best way to do that is to use the cold water that we have prepared earlier. Now this is 8 cups of water, and we have to put these 2 inside the vessel combined before putting in the SCOBY. So let's do that. water inside of the vessel is still a bit warm, wait for another 5 minutes before putting in the SCOBY and the starter tea inside of the vessel. But if you think that it's already in room temperature, let's put in the starter tea first. So I will be putting 2 cups of starter tea inside of the vessel. And this starter tea is super important because it will help to prevent harmful pathogens, and it will also help boost the process of fermentation. The starter tea has to be unflavored and still natural, so it has to be from the first fermentation process or else it won't work. Now let's put in the SCOBY. The SCOBY is small, but it will grow larger in time. Another important thing that you need to keep in mind is that if the SCOBY sinks, it's okay. If it floats, it's okay. If it, kind of sinks, kind of floats in a diagonal angle, it's okay. Now that's done, the SCOBY is in there. Make sure that the upper part of your vessel is dry before putting on the cloth. To secure the fabric on the vessel, I will be using a few rubber bands. So there you have it, the first fermentation process of your homemade kombucha. Leave this for 6 to 7 days or approximately 1 week before you try to test the flavor and open up the fabric. Now that this is done, I would like to share with you more information, more knowledge, and also tips and tricks for your kombucha based on various questions that people have online. The first question that I usually see from people is that people are asking what is the best location to store your kombucha. So the best place to store your kombucha is in a place where it is far away from sunlight, it has good air circulation, because if it does not have good air circulation, it might form mold. It has to be in room temperature, or approximately 18 to 25 degrees Celsius or 65 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. It is also important for you to store your kombucha vessel in an area where it is far from any chemicals in your house or anything that might contaminate it. Another question that I frequently see online is how do you know if your SCOBY is okay, if it's healthy, and if it's not sick? So 1, if your SCOBY is not fully floating near the surface of the water, it's okay. And 2, if there are stringy brownish yeasty bits in the water, it's also okay. And 3, if you see opaque specks in your kombucha, it's most probably okay, and it usually derives from the yeast and bacteria. And 4, if you see little blackish specks on your SCOBY through time, it's most probably from the tea. So that's why it's important to strain your tea well. However, if you do get some bits of tea inside of your vessel, it's still okay. It's natural and it won't harm your SCOBY. And then, if you see that the color of your kombucha tea lightens over time, that's also normal. Another frequently asked question that a lot of people ask online is how do you know if there's mold in your kombucha? So if mold does appear, and hopefully not, because if it appears, it means that you have to chuck everything away and start all over again, and hopefully you won't have to experience that. If it does appear, it usually appears in the surface of the water, and as what mold looks like, it will be fuzzy, greenish, blackish, and usually if mold forms, it means that you're not storing the kombucha properly and maybe the cloth gets wet, or that's why you have to check up on it once in a while. But don't open the fabric, because it will, who knows what will enter when you open up the fabric, and just leave it be until the 6th or 7th day. Another question people ask is how do you know when your kombucha is done? So approximately for the first fermentation process, it requires 6 to 7 days. So what you can do to test whether the kombucha is ready to drink or not, or whether it's ready for the second fermentation process, and by the way, not everybody wants to flavor their kombucha, not everybody wants to make it fizzy, but if you do want to flavor and make it fizzy, that's the second fermentation process. So if it's done with the first fermentation process, it is also ready to drink. So what you can do to test whether your kombucha is ready to drink or not is to use a little spoon and see how it tastes like, Or you can also use a straw by covering the end of the straw and sucking the water in and then putting a little bit on your finger and see how it tastes like. If it tastes too sour, it means that you have to bottle it or start consuming it. If it tastes too sweet, it means that you need to wait for it a little bit longer, for another day or the next few days. So that is all on how to make your very own kombucha at home. I hope you found this guideline very helpful. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to put your thumbs up in this video, share it around with your friends so more people can live healthier, and also don't forget to subscribe and push the notification bell for my channel. See you in the next video.